I feel like Madonna. Just a little younger and with less toy boys. Good morning. How is everybody doing? Fantastic. My name is Sarah. I apologise for the accent. You can blame my pommy father. But I have spent 4 years in Queensland. I'm currently based out of Hong Kong and had an interesting flight over from Hong Kong where I stopped in Cairns, went down to Brisbane and didn't realise I had to pop back up to get here. And I'm a traveller. I'm really excited to be spending the next 50 minutes with you guys, and I hope to be sharing some insights on TripAdvisor with you all. You are all standing in the way of my lunch, so I'm going to get through this promptly and quickly, but I hope you'll all be speaking with me during the rest of the next 2 days. My colleague over there, Jess Quinlan, who's actually based in Sydney, will be here with you all as well for the next 2 days, so do come and find us and talk to us and ask lots of questions. Thank you. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about is how travel's evolved. If we think back to the days of tourism and travel, I remember the days when Dad would say, by the way, we're going, pack, we're gone, get in the car, don't ask questions. But I tried to do that with my 9-year-old nephew when we were holidaying in Normandy, and he, after about 5 minutes, said, hang on, I've just been online. It looks like there's not a lot for me to do there. I'm not sure if I really want to go and visit this Omaha beach. What is it all about? So information is out there, and anyone in your family is going to be going online and asking and looking and researching, and they have access to loads of information. So I found this online, and I thought it was rather funny because A, North Queensland is calling you, but travel has evolved since then. Kodak is no longer with us. But the evolution of travel is there, and it keeps on evolving. And what TripAdvisor has done is we started in the year 2000, and I think we're an amazing community site where there's lots of information for travelers to search on. So what I wanted to go through really quickly is to get an idea of how many of you are using TripAdvisor. Love it. I'm done. I'm so happy. It's great because when you're trying to understand about the traveler's needs, all you really need to do is ask yourself, because you're all travelers. When you're going online on TripAdvisor or you're looking at your Facebook or Twitter, you yourself, you're the traveler. You're trying to find out how I'm going to travel, and it's all about who you're traveling with. You know, if you're traveling with friends and you're going on a really cool golf weekend, it's going to be slightly different if you're traveling with your family or with your kids, or if you're going on a stag do, that's going to be really different. So to give you some idea about TripAdvisor's size, we started in the year 2000. For those of you who don't know our history, our CEO and founder, Steve Corfer, was actually planning a holiday for his family. And he just couldn't get the information he needed, because what he was looking for was specific information to the needs of his particular journey. And he wanted other travelers' insight. And so they say behind every great man is an amazing woman. His wife said, that's a really good idea. You should do something about that. And so he started TripAdvisor in the year 2000 above a little pizzeria in Newton, where our head office is still based. By the year 2013, we had achieved 100 million reviews and opinions. And, oh, there we go. And now we're, as of this month, 375 million unique users coming to the site every month. Amazingly, every single one of them are travelers, and none of them are coming to look for Dyson vacuum cleaners. So what's very important is that the site itself is pure travel. Anybody who's coming on TripAdvisor is planning, researching, and ultimately booking a trip. What's also important is that we currently have 250 million reviews and opinions on the site. Now, I'm not sure how big your marketing team is, your sales team for the operators in the room, but unless you've got a budget of, like Coca-Cola's, essentially 250 million reviews and opinions. That's your sales, that's your advocacy there. So looking at reviews and travelers who have written reviews, that's really your opportunity to utilize that advocacy and push that out as your sales message. But when we think about traffic, 375 million unique users, what's really exciting for me is that we currently have 160 user contributions every minute. So all of you who had dinner last night in Townsville and enjoyed the amazing food, if you're writing a review, you're already contributing to that restaurant's reviews and opinions. And with 160 coming in every minute, we have a very engaged community. So let's look at who TripAdvisor's travelers are. When we think about what they're doing on site on TripAdvisor, what we're looking at is how are they behaving? Now, obviously, this is from a global traffic point of view. Travelers who are in Sydney will obviously not be booking 20 weeks out. They'll be much closer. But in general, what's really interesting, and this is specific for the destinations in the room, is that a lot of travelers who come on TripAdvisor haven't actually made their decision. They're looking for inspiration. They're trying to get the information to decide where I should go and why I should go there. And if you're traveling with your family and you've got a 9-year-old who's rather picky, you're going to need to choose a destination that will satisfy everybody on that trip. So hence, we know that travelers coming on TripAdvisor, at the very beginning, they're still looking at around 5 destinations. And it's not until around week 4 that they've really narrowed it down to 1 destination and looking at around 15 hotels. What we know as well is that 54% have at least 1 destination in mind, but 40% end up booking a different destination. And 38% of those haven't made a decision at all. They're still looking for that inspiration. They're looking for an idea of where to go. So think about that when you're thinking about your destination and what your story is telling and getting that message out to make sure that you're encouraging travelers to choose you. Oops, sorry. No real surprises here. China's the only odd one out in that globally most of our traffic is a little on the ladies heavy. Woohoo! We're doing the research, we're doing the planning, but in China it's male more. It's more the lads online who are researching. 40% of TripAdvisor users are planning and booking holidays for their family. And in terms of age, we're really evenly split. From my 9-year-old nephew up to my 75-year-old dad. So in terms of age, a really good spread. China's, again, is the only one where we're seeing a slightly younger audience and less on the older side. Who do we travel with? Now, when we talk at TripAdvisor and we talk about demographic, we have demographic information, but really what we're looking at is travelers' intent. What are they planning to do on that trip, and who are they traveling with? It's not necessarily just to do with age, but certainly it's to do with that intent. So what we know is that most of our travelers are traveling with their partner and spouse. Lots are going with their friends, in particular the millennials. There are family holidays and other family members. I'm probably in the other. I'm what they call, is it called a punk or a pack? I'm a something popular aunt, unmarried aunt, or something like that. I'm in one of those categories, and I travel with my sister and her kids, or travel on my own. As you know, TripAdvisor really is a leisure site, but we do have a lot of business travelers who are searching for the right hotel for them and where it's located. So again, we do have that category as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about content. You've heard this time and time again, that content is king. It's a really old phrase, but it's so true. And surprisingly, we're still not there yet with the content. What we know is travelers are looking for travelers' reviews. They're looking for attraction information, and the more information you can provide, the better it is. Where is it located? So Jazeen Barracks, where is it located? How do I get there? What's the history? What are the opening times? Information that I can access quickly and on my mobile, which I'll talk a little bit about in a moment. Trip ideas and themes. So if I am driving, obviously not from Brisbane up to Townsville, but for example, if I am driving and I'm in Townsville, where can I go nearby? How can I extend my trip? How can I disperse that travel? Restaurant information is very useful. Hotel information. Photos are really utilised. Maps, information from your local council or from the Destination Tourism Board. Weather is also very important, but also looking at Facebook and your friends' activities. And for those of you who have used TripAdvisor and you've logged in using your Facebook account, you can see where your friends have been and actually call them up and ask for some advice. Who in here has a smartphone? Or actually, let me say this, who doesn't have a smartphone? Because whoever doesn't have a smartphone, come and find us, because I think Jess and I will buy you a commiseratory drink. Everybody has a smartphone. If this gets too boring, you're all going to start texting and tweeting and Facebooking and looking at, what you're going to do tomorrow night. We're all on our mobile. And in TripAdvisor, we've seen our traffic grow from last year to this year. 50% of our traffic is now searching destination information on their mobile. So one of the research that we've seen year in, year out on our Trip Barometer survey, which, by the way, you can access off TripAdvisor. It's free. It's broken down by markets. You can access it. Each year it comes out around March. We know that the number one requirement from accommodation, for example, is not a pillow menu, but in fact is free Wi-Fi. This is a really big problem if you're not offering free Wi-Fi, because it means that a traveler cannot do advocacy. They cannot sell your business for you. A really good example of this is I went on a tour in South Africa, and the tour operator had free Wi-Fi in every single one of his cars. So as I was driving through Stellenbosch down to Hermanus, I could actually tweet, Facebook, I could check in, and I could share my experiences immediately. I arrived here yesterday, and I opened my curtain, I was like, wow, look at that view. And what did I want to do? Why do we do it? We're doing it to show off, aren't we? We never put up a photograph of you looking manky, being miserable. It's always, look at me, look at where I am. I'm at this beach. You're showing off. That's really what this is all about. And I want to show off the hotel. I want to show off where I am. And if I don't have Wi-Fi, I can't do that. Now, it's a big pet peeve of mine. People have heard me speak, know that it's one of the things I talk about all the time. Because you don't charge your guests for electricity and water, you shouldn't be charging for Wi-Fi, because it does so much for your business. Thank you. If you are a tour operator and you're a fishing tour boat, if you can offer that, it's such a great way of driving sales, driving engagement, without you having to put money behind it. So if you want a cheap, free way to get people to engage, then offer Wi-Fi. What we have seen a slight change this year is actually the free shuttle service. That's come creeping up much higher, and it's about time, isn't it? We speak a lot about how we just don't have time nowadays to do everything we want to do. So having that accessibility is very important. I'm really hoping that when I speak again next year in Australia, that I really won't be talking about free Wi-Fi. I have to say, it's a big, big problem in Australia, not just in Queensland. And if you compare yourself to someone like Cambodia, for example, I was at a cafe in Cambodia, it was, thatched roof and basically 2 sticks, and they offered free Wi-Fi. So, sorry. How many of you have the TripAdvisor app? Lovely. How many of you are going to WTM? No. Okay, good. Don't want to go there. But for your next trip, if you are planning to go on travels, and you can download a city guide. So on TripAdvisor, we have the Brisbane City Guide. Travelers from around the world can download the city guide at home using their Wi-Fi. Once I've traveled to Brisbane, I can turn off my data, turn off Wi-Fi, and I can access information without incurring huge data roaming charges. And what you can actually do is if I'm standing on Queen Street and I need to find a restaurant and it wants to direct me, it'll actually triangulate using towers to give you a signal so that it will actually point me in the right location. I've got really bad eyesight, so occasionally I look a bit odd because I'm doing this, but what's really amazing is I can actually access information without incurring huge charges. And it's therefore very important for those who are coming from Brisbane to make sure that your content is online. Can I therefore call you to make the reservation for lunch? Because that's all about upselling the destination, about ensuring that I, as an overseas traveller coming into Brisbane, that I'm not only staying there, but I'm actually spending more money. So instead of going to McDonald's for lunch, I should be going where? So that is useful when I'm able to go on the TripAdvisor app and it shows me what's nearby and I can find a nice restaurant to go for a really good seafood meal, for example. So for those of you who haven't tried, I've downloaded the Brisbane City app on my phone. You can come and play with it. I'll turn off the data. I have my own dongle for Australia, so I have Wi-Fi, but I'll turn that off as well. And you can play. Just don't make any long-distance phone calls. What we know as well is when travelers are traveling, this number is actually higher now. Nearly 99% of us bring our mobile device when we're traveling. A family will bring 4 devices, normally a laptop, 1 tablet, and 3 phones, for example. And different countries will have different usage. China, for example, is really mobile heavy. Tablets not a major thing for them. New Zealanders and Australians, for example, are more 50-50. We're seeing a good percentage of tablet usage as well as mobile. So when we think about what we're doing, so I'm now in Townsville, what I'm looking at is 45% of TripAdvisor users are looking for restaurants when they're in the destination. So if you're not listed online, then I can't find you. I can't go and try your amazing food. I'm reading reviews because I'm trying to decide if this is the right place for me. What does that mean? If I'm traveling on my own and I really don't fancy a night in a restaurant that's really very family-based, for example, it's got a buffet service, it's probably not for me that evening, but if I'm bringing the monkeys along from the UK, then obviously, yes, I'd want to go there. So the reviews will help me determine what suits me at this precise moment. So I'm reading those reviews. If you're not driving reviews to your business, I can't gauge whether or not this is suitable for me, and you can't upsell your business as well. What we also are doing is we're looking for things to do. So if I've got a few hours to kick around tomorrow afternoon, what can I do in Townsville? Now, the folks of Townsville, you are the experts. You can tell me everything to do here, whether it's for 10 minutes or 3 hours or 3 days. But I'm looking for that information that I can access off my mobile phone and online. Who is this? Who's got their Apple Watch? Who's got wearables right now? Not yet? This is where we're going. We're getting there faster than we had expected. For those of you who don't know, Starwood Hotel, for example, you can now check in online. You can get your room key on your Apple Watch, and I can actually zap the door and go in using my watch. We're already there with most airlines where I can have my mobile boarding pass. With this, we're moving faster and faster. So when we talk about mobile, it's not, oh, it'll be soon. We're there. We're now talking about wearables. There's, I don't know if you've seen on the latest one, where you can actually have a kind of a Fitbit band, and it actually puts a screen on your arm, and you can still touch it and do things. The only thing I thought was odd about that is I'm not sure I want to do that when I'm answering the phone. Hey, how's it? Yep, no, I can hear you. That looks slightly odd. But thinking about where travel technology is going, you need to be ready for that. So when we look at that, what we know is 34% of our travelers want a mobile check-in option. How many of you are mobile ready? How many of you have a mobile ready website? Can I find you? Can I book you through my mobile? Or are you still making me call you or email you or, God forbid, fax you? You'll be surprised. I've had that recent request, please fax me your request. And I was like, I don't have a fax machine. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. However, only 11% offer this option right now. And what's important is 45% of our travelers are using their smartphone to book travel activities before they get here. It's not about just getting them here, it's about telling the entire story. So if you're trying to get them to Townsville, what are you telling them to do when they're here? Are you giving them enough content to drive that engagement? When we talk about the 5 key trends of 2015, what we know is that free Wi-Fi, that's what they're asking for. Free breakfast, in-room amenities. A number of people have said, you know, what the research shows that instead of charging me $12 for a really small packet of peanuts, why don't you just give it to me and just increase my room rate? I actually won't notice that much. It's also odd that a lot of hotels offer you a complimentary bottle of water, but there's also a $12 bottle of water in the fridge as well. So I think we need to work out what you want to do there. Free shuttle service is important, and obviously with travelers coming from China, for example, staff who can speak their language. There's a shopping village in the UK called Bicester, which is a high-end outlet shopping centre. And everybody there speaks Mandarin in every single one of the shops because they want them to spend more. We know that travel, especially international travel, is to increase by 15%, with Turkey looking to travel the most. India, New Zealand, South Africa, and Brazil are looking to increase their travel as well. We always talk about why we want to travel, and for those of you who get a chance to go to Trip Barometer, and if you don't have a chance, let us know. We'll actually send out the Trip Barometer survey so you can have that access. Surprisingly, the #1 reason to travel for Chinese travelers is not shopping. And I'm half Chinese, it's in my DNA, and I was driving through Townsville last night, I was like, ooh, shops, yay. But actually, it's sightseeing that is the #1 reason for Chinese travelers to travel. But from global travelers, it's somewhere I've always wanted to go. It suits the holiday activities I want. Travelers are looking for experiences. It's about that storytelling, and you need to share that story with travelers around the world so that they can reshare those. Who's planning to spend more? Well, we're really excited globally to see that New Zealanders are planning to spend more on their holidays. Thai, South Africans, and you guys. Wow, excellent. And Argentina. These are the 5 markets we know that are looking to spend more on their holidays this year rather than decreasing spend on travel. And as I mentioned, sightseeing, food is very important. I don't know if you all know this, but for example, Chinese travelers, when they travel, what they do is they'll go to a restaurant in Paris, they'll take a photograph of the menu, they'll send it to their friends through social media and say, what should I choose? So see that free Wi-Fi, how it works really well? Accommodation, activities, and shopping is in there. So these are the 5 trends we're seeing in 2015, and we'll actually see more of those in 2016 when the new Trip Barometer report comes out. Let's talk about you guys. What are we seeing? Well, we know that in terms of traffic, looking year on year out, that we're seeing 30% growth from 2014 to 2013. We're not at the end of the year yet for 2015, but we're seeing a really nice, steady growth for traffic looking and researching Queensland. These are the top 20 markets international. Majority of the travel here, we know that travelers is domestic who are looking at domestic. That's true of every country. So the largest audience looking at America is actually Americans. But internationally, the US, the UK, New Zealand, Japan, China, these are your top 20, Russia being the last. But let's look at the growth. We're seeing amazing growth, obviously, from China. Malaysia, no surprises there. Of course, that market's dropped. It was a really bad year for them last year. Malaysia dropping is true of every market, every country we're seeing. Italy has also dropped, and so has Brazil, whereas Switzerland has grown. So I think that's really good news. And then also Russia and Taiwan have grown as well. So we look at this year on year to see what the market is doing, although the volume is large, but we're trying to understand what are the shifts. So what I wanted to show as well is how long are travellers spending in Queensland in comparison to the rest of Australia. It's on average around 4 days. Now, don't forget, this is global traffic. I've broken this information down by region. But what you can see is travellers to Queensland, they tend to stay longer during the May and June period, whereas in January and August, they're tending to stay shorter. Now, this is global traffic again, so bear that in mind. January is a normal one as well because it's Christmas. It's just after Christmas. August, I suspect that's due to weather. It's not as hot. So looking at that, you're looking at around 4 days on average for global travellers coming to Queensland. How long are they planning before they get here? Again, this is global, so there will be differences from a domestic travel, but this is international travel only. And what we know, again, is international travels, when they book their holidays to Queensland, they normally book around 3 months in advance, in particular during the January to March period. So when we're looking at this in this planning cycle, what's important from you as a product is making sure that you're always on, you're always telling your story to travellers so that a UK traveller who's booking 120 days out has that information to make that decision. I wanted to show very quickly as well about how users are searching Queensland and if they're using their mobile or on their desktop or tablet. As you can see, tablet really isn't a huge one, except for New Zealand. They're searching Queensland information on their tablet. So the other thing to ask is, your website, is it mobile ready? Is it responsive design? If you say no, you don't have a website, then I'd say leave now, quick, go, set it up now, quick. If it's not mobile ready, I'd say do that by the end of today. And if it's not responsive design, try and get that done by tomorrow. But essentially, looking at this should give you some insight as to how travellers are searching Queensland. So looking at how travellers are reviewing Queensland, the country that responds the most positively on all three of our categories, accommodation, attractions, and restaurants, are in fact Brits. They write the most positive reviews on Queensland. Malaysians tend to write the slightly lower review, bubble ratings we call them on TripAdvisor, just slightly shy of 4 bubbles. So our full bubble rating is 5. On average in Queensland, they're very high, but in general, Malaysians and Chinese for restaurants tend to just be slightly under 4. Now, I think a lot of that is to do with expectations. If you're traveling for the first time to somewhere in Southeast Asia, and for example, in the Mekong, dog is a popular dish. So if you weren't expecting it on the menu, and they bring out the Kleenex puppy on a plate, you may write a rather scathing review. But this is expectations. So I think it's about understanding the traveller who's coming to your restaurant and making sure that you're showcasing and talking to them and giving them the right information and understanding the cultural differences. I think the other one just now when you showed the slide about long travel, for travellers from the US and a lot of Southeast Asian travel, our annual leave is 14 days. I used to work in the London office and I had 28 days annual leave. I'm now in Hong Kong, I have 18 days. That changes my ability to do certain types of travel. So we have to think about managing expectations. But when we look at accommodation reviews, the bubble ratings themselves, on average for the whole of Queensland, you're above 4. That's actually very good. The average TripAdvisor bubble rating is 4.12, so you guys are doing a good job on accommodations. I'll break this down per region, but you need to keep improving that and making sure that you're getting travellers to write reviews and you're responding to reviews, looking at those reviews if you're in accommodation and finding out what travellers are saying so you can address those concerns. When we look at attractions, for example, the average bubble rating is 4.45, which is really, really high. For this, though, nationally, Queensland is actually just second to last, in fact. The other states, Victoria's just below you, but you're all ranked high, but just in terms of the comparison, just slightly lower. But again, making sure that you're responding to reviews and driving those. In terms of restaurants, bubble rating of 4. It's a tricky one because it can be anything from a cafe to a 5-star Michelin. So you need to think about, again, managing expectations. When we talk about travel content growth, what's really exciting is that we've seen, for example, that hotels in the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast in the last year have really, really risen. Now, when we talk about content listing, does everybody know how you can get listed on TripAdvisor? I'll tell you very quickly, there's 3 ways. One is me. I went to an amazing restaurant. It's actually listed on TripAdvisor already. But imagine that the restaurant I went to last night wasn't listed. I can go and write a review on that restaurant, and that will actually generate a listing. But I'm clearly an idiot traveler, so I may have written the wrong address. I may have not realized that there was a disabled access. So it's important for the business owner to claim that. The second way to get listed is to actually, as the owner, generate a listing, and it's all free. And the third way is actually when we work with the state or the national, and you give us an entire listing, and we'll bulk list that up for you. But again, that doesn't mean you take ownership. Ownership is important because you can respond to reviews. But when we look at this, for example, we can see that the accommodation listings, and accommodation is not just hotels, it also means vacation rentals as well. We're seeing some real growth, fast-paced growth for Queensland and Sunshine Coast. For restaurants as well, Brisbane's really jumped the gun and really added a lot more restaurants. Since October 2013, we've seen 700 newly registered restaurants. Some of you know, earlier this year, TripAdvisor also purchased Dimmy. So we're increasing our content listing all the time on TripAdvisor. And attractions listing as well. What we know as well, for example, is that Fraser Coast has actually really driven that increase in attractions for that region in the last year. So let's talk about individual regions. So when we look at Brisbane, this is Brisbane region. What we know is that this is the current content listed on TripAdvisor. You are the only people who would know if there is, in fact, 303 accommodations within the Brisbane region. Only you would know if there's 418 attractions. Attractions includes anything from a museum to a park, to a beach, to a spa, to a day tour operator. There are 3,000 restaurants in the Brisbane region. What we know is that globally, travelers who are coming to Brisbane travel around 4.5 days when they come and stay. And on average, they're planning their booking around 73, 74 days beforehand. Your direct competitor from a global travel is Sydney, Surfers, and Melbourne. So from domestic is Sydney, Surfers, and Melbourne. So when they're researching Brisbane, the next destinations they're searching is Sydney, Surfers, and Melbourne. So to give you some insight, I had a quick look at the information on Brisbane City itself and Melbourne. Melbourne has 63% more things to do listed on TripAdvisor and has 150% more reviews compared to the things to do reviews on TripAdvisor. And Melbourne has one less hotel, but 114% more reviews than Brisbane hotels. And Melbourne has 6% less restaurants, but 51% more reviews. So the key takeaway is drive those reviews. Reviews are advocacy. It helps sell the destination. People ask me all the time, you know, London and Paris are always #1 on everybody's list. Well, firstly, they've been doing it for about 400 or 500 years, so one hopes that they're getting it right. But also, it's because they've been getting that information out there for a really long time. So you need to think about that if you're Fraser Coast or Outback Queensland or Mackay or tropical North Queensland. What is the information going out there, and how can I make sure that travellers are really engaged? So Fraser Coast, for example, we're looking at 163, 70, 117. Travel duration slightly shorter to the Fraser Coast, about 3.29 days, but around the planning is about the same. And travelers who look at Fraser Island, for example, when we compare, they will next look at Hervey Bay. So when we talk about Fraser Coast, similarities there will be that we really need you to increase more content. Because in order for me to decide to go here, you need to determine, is it for families, is it for singles, is it for what? What is the story that you're telling for Fraser Coast? And I'm an international traveler. I have to say, I don't know it. I admit my ignorance, but you need to tell me. So what's the story for this region? You need to also check the quality of the images. I had a quick look last night. There's an image of a brick wall. So we need to think about how we can really improve that and telling that story. Gold Coast. Lots of accommodation, restaurants. Travel duration is about 5.67 days. And they're booking, planning to go to the Gold Coast about 88 days in advance. We work very closely with Gold Coast Tourism, and we come up with this conversation all the time. The number one competitor to Gold Coast Tourism is yourself, because domestically, travelers are searching Surfers and Broadbeach. From an international point of view, we don't know the difference. I only know it as the Gold Coast. So that's something that we've had conversations about painting the right messaging as to whether or not you are, in fact, Gold Coast, and that's the name of the region, or you need to break it up. So something to be thought about. What we know as well is in terms of attractions, we've seen an improvement in the bubble rating, and in terms of accommodation, slight drop in the bubble ratings year on year, but restaurants has had a really good improvement since 2014. Mackay region, I actually went to Mackay. And it was lovely. And I learnt a phrase I'd never heard of. High-vis men. I didn't know that. I had no idea that was a thing. So I was like, yum. Listen, you guys have so many phrases, I can't keep up with it. But anyways, travel duration is 3.42 days. Travel planning is very similar to Fraser, about 77.83 days. After people search Mackay, the most searched is Airlie Beach. So when we look at the comparison between Airlie Beach and Mackay, Airlie Beach has over 11,000 reviews just on things to do, and they have 101 things to do for Airlie Beach. But there's only 400 reviews on things to do in Mackay. So Stephen, I don't know if you're in the room. If you are, I'm hunting you. Outback Queensland. We created the Outback Queensland geopage on TripAdvisor last year, and we've seen some real increases in listings on Outback Queensland. Travel duration, 3.75 days, 80 days in terms of planning. I think the key thing here is making sure that you're showing the information on how to get there and the routing. And if you have to drive from place to place, then what restaurants are in between, and writing those reviews and driving those reviews will help. Sorry, I'm running out of time. Townsville in North Queensland. 3.99, so nearly 4 days. New Zealanders, for example, are spending slightly longer, whereas the Swiss spend less than 3 days in Townsville and North Queensland. 83.45 days in terms of planning. After Townsville, Cairns is the most visited, researched after Townsville. And again, if you just do a straight comparison between Townsville and Cairns, it's the reviews and the content that's listed between the two that is the major difference. So there's a lot more content, a lot more reviews on Cairns, but there's 3,700 something reviews for Townsville things to do, and there's 29, nearly 30,000 reviews for things to do in Cairns. So again, it's the reviews. It drives the advocacy. Jezine Barracks was, in fact, won a Traveller's Choice Awards in 2015 for the whole of Queensland in the South Pacific category. So congratulations. Tropical North Queensland, 4.34 days on average and about 88 days. So you can see in terms of that planning, it's not a huge difference in terms of days. Most viewed after Tropical North Queensland is Palm Cove and Sydney. Two of the Traveller Choice Awards for destinations were won by this region, Cairns and Port Douglas. So congratulations, you won Traveller's Choice Awards Destinations in 2015 in the South Pacific category. What I would recommend is for the folks from the Tropical North Queensland to come and attack Jess or myself during lunch. Let us get your regional page set up, because if you're going to promote yourself as a region known as Tropical North Queensland, it has to be searchable beyond just your own website. So my suggestion is making sure that you come and find us and we can create a similar page like we did for Outback Queensland. Southern Great Barrier Reef. Indians, for example, are spending over 4.5 days here, and again, the Swiss are spending less. Those Swiss watches are working beautifully. Travel planning, again, very similar to the rest of Queensland. I wanted to bring up Banana. Has everybody been to Banana? Okay. I apologize, there is no intention to abuse bananas. But the point is that if Banana really is a location that you wish to drive travelers to, currently on TripAdvisor, there is one thing to do there, which is lodging. So are there restaurants? Are there things to do nearby? If there are, please make sure they're listed so that I can go and visit Bananas. If not, I will go bananas. Southern Queensland, travel planning is around 68%. So actually for Southern Queensland, the travel period drops dramatically. So again, think about that. We can also create a Southern Queensland page for you on TripAdvisor. This is all free stuff, by the way, folks. Because again, if you want to promote yourself as a region and it's only listed on your website, you need to make sure that you're saying Southern Queensland across the whole world. Again, making sure that you need to drive the information. Warwick, for example, has some things to do there. And again, the images don't really match the expectations. So talking to your industry and teaching them and helping them in order to make sure that the content is relevant. Sunshine Coast, really quickly, 80 days. And most viewed are actually destinations within the Sunshine Coast. We haven't seen the Sunshine Coast's reviews grow as quickly as the other regions, so you need to make sure that you're asking your industry to get travelers to write more reviews. Whitsundays, you can see the numbers here. What I will say is that after Whitsundays, Hamilton Island is the most viewed. What's interesting is, the folks from Whitsundays, I would imagine that this is a real spa area, but there's only 4 spas listed on TripAdvisor and only 1 fishing tour. Again, a perception of mine, I may be wrong, but I would imagine that there's a lot more boating things to do in that region. So if they're not listed, please make sure that they are. Really quickly, I know they keep flashing me, but just to say, on average, the TripAdvisor user is giving an average bubble rating of 4.12. It's a TripAdvisor myth that all reviews are negative. Actually, what we're trying to do, what travelers are doing, are showcasing their favorite things. Because it's like Facebook. You want to show off. You want to share your experiences. What we know is that 96% of TripAdvisor users say it's important to read the reviews, and they read between 6 to 12 reviews on one particular property to get an aggregate so that they can make that decision. 93% of TripAdvisor users believe that the reviews they read are accurate to the description. So when we talk about reviews, it is about you ensuring that you're getting your message out accurately. So if I'm booking to come and stay at this hotel and they decided they need to renovate the pool during December, it is absolutely vital to let travelers know that you're going to do that, because you've just managed their expectations so that they don't come here in the hottest month and not being able to access the pool. It's simple tricks like that that will help. And there's a reason to do it, because we know that travelers, when they write reviews, are really important to your business. But when you respond to reviews, you can actually increase your prices by 11%. So there's a real financial reason to do it. So just very quickly, how many of you respond to reviews? Okay, next year, all hands up. Right? Responding to reviews are vital. And before I go into that really quick, 3 things that people ask me all the time is, why am I not ranked here? Why am I ranked there? I can give you 3 ingredients, but it's not the entire ingredient list for how we come up with the algorithm. I have no idea. It's like the Coca-Cola recipe. What we know is that the quality of the reviews is really important. And this is what you're looking at, what we call the sub-bubble ratings. So location, sleep quality, this is real. This is from Qualia Resort. Value, so overall, they have a very high bubble rating. Recency of reviews, there's no point saying, oh, I have a really good review. It's from 4 years ago. Online, it's about now. So make sure you have a recent review. This was actually pulled yesterday, so you've got, this is live. And then you've got quantity of reviews. Again, you've got to drive the volume. So you need lots of reviews. Those are not the only 3 things for rankings, but they do play a role. What's really important here is 85% say that TripAdvisor users that a thoughtful manager's response to a bad review improves their impression of a hotel. So I'll give you a really simple example. Where I had dinner last night was amazing food. I think the people who went with us will say it was amazing food. I read the manager's responses. They were good, but there was none of them where they learned to upsell. And here's an example of how you upsell. You acknowledge the traveler's response, thank you very much, but upsell. So for example, the restaurant that we were at last night, it's a great story to tell. We're located in the fun part of the city where bars are open. It's only a 5-minute walk from. Our food is organic. We only use regional producers that provide us with amazing pork, with the freshest cheeses. Why? Because you've told a story. Don't forget, we do this amazing breakfast selection every Sunday where we have this Townsville brunch. I've made that up, by the way. But I'm saying, for all of you, this is what you need to be doing, because you've upsold the destination, you've upsold your own business, and most importantly, it cost you nothing, and it took you 5 minutes. And if you register and take ownership of your listing, you can get alerts on your mobile phone. So frankly, you can even respond if you're on the loo. So, key takeaways. Make sure you're listing all your tourism products. Ask travelers to share their experience because they are selling for you. They are selling your product. Respond to your reviews. Upsell. We are really excited. We have a new chef. We are located in the heart of town. We make Townsville do this. So this is why it's important. Paint your picture. Make sure the information is accurate. If you have a beautiful restaurant, take a photograph of it. Make sure you're updating that on a quarterly basis. Everybody here, I've proven it, has a smartphone. So make sure you use your smartphone. I'm not asking you to go and hire Ansel Adams and get him to take photographs, but you have a smartphone, so take photographs that are authentic. Tell a great story. Are you mobile ready? If not, please make sure you are. And can I find you? Can I book you online? If I can't, then you need to think about what you're offering, because if I can't book you quickly, I'm not going to choose you. And a little pet peeve, make sure I have free Wi-Fi. I know, I'm running out of time, but I need to talk about China, so you can yank me off the stage really quickly. I know you're all focused on China. India is the other market you need to be looking at. We know that China will account for 60% of all future opportunities. The current market, you're only actually, the current China population, only 7.5% is a travel population. We haven't really hit Chinese travelers yet, not from Australia, I mean globally. So there's a lot more of them to come. They're also very young in that they're not mature travelers. You're seeing a lot of group travel as opposed to FITs. But we know from the research that we see on Chinese travelers that they're growing. And in terms of spend, there's a lot more spend to come. What I also mean in terms of growing is that they're looking to disperse. More mature Chinese travelers don't want to go to the group tours where everybody else goes. They want to start going to where nobody else has been. And what are they looking for? Same as everybody else, unique experiences. They also want to have an opportunity for better health. And it's important. Chinese people talk about it all the time, health and wealth. So if you've got an opportunity, say, come to Townsville, got amazing local produce, this is where you can go for a really nice walk. Don't worry, there's also shopping. This is the story you need to be telling. And then just to quickly let you know that in terms of focus, you shouldn't be focusing just on the 4 mega cities, Beijing, Shenzhen, Shanghai, Guangzhou. In fact, on TripAdvisor, this only equates for 27% of our Chinese traffic. They're coming from around 300 other destinations within China. So bear that in mind. I'm getting off the stage very quickly, but I just wanted to celebrate you. 2015, Queensland won 222 Traveller's Choice Awards across all of our different categories. The year has not ended. There are still more Traveller's Choice Awards to come. So I'm hoping that in next year, we're going to see this number grow. The 4 destinations that won for Traveller's Choice was Brisbane, Noosa, Cairns, and Port Douglas, but somehow my thing's not working. 2,146 businesses won Certificate of Excellence Awards. For those of you who won, congratulations. And 217 of you got TripAdvisor's Hall of Fame certificate as well. So congratulations, Queensland. I'm really pleased and proud to have been invited to speak here. I apologize for taking your time. I'm here for lunch, tea, dinner. Come and find me for the next 2 days. I'd love to talk to you more about helping you and your businesses. Thank you very much.